And as the situation in Gaza reaches another tipping point, I'm joined by a very special guest, joined by Israel's leading voice, journalist, author Gideon Levy, columnist in Haaretz, joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Levy. Today, Israel has declared a fresh offensive, ground offensive on Gaza. The defense minister has said Gaza is burning. But this comes also on a day when a UN Commission of Inquiry report headed by a very respected judge has said there are reasonable grounds to conclude that Israel is committing genocide in the Palestinian areas. Reconcile these two conflicting thoughts coming out. One side saying it's Gaza is burning almost triumphantly, even as the world body says Israel is committing genocide, sir.
They are not conflicting. They are completing each other. Gaza is burning now for over 2 years. And the burning of Gaza is part of the genocide, which was declared by this commission of the UN. No contradiction. Gaza is burning, and now more than before, what started tonight might lead us to much worse scenes in Gaza, much more mass killing, much more destruction, more than we saw in the last 2 years. And at the same time, the conclusion that that's a genocide is just describing what is happening on the ground.
So you also concur that what is happening in Gaza is a genocide, that the conditions that Palestinians are being put through are amounting to a genocide of the 21st century? Because I look at the numbers that have been cited in several reports: 64,000 Palestinians killed, including over 18,000 children, nearly 10,000 women, according to Gazan health authorities. Life expectancy collapsing from 75 years to 45 in just 1 year. You seem to also agree that what's happening is a genocide, Mr. Levy, because that is a very, very ominous word in today's times.
Absolutely. Until a few weeks ago, I refrained. I didn't use this term. I was objecting of using this term. The figures are not the only way to judge if it is a genocide or not. Above all, it's about the intents. And the intents became very clear because Israel declares so. Israel declares that it wants to evacuate 1.3 million people who are right now in Gaza City into the south, putting them in a cage, in a concentration camp, all based on Israeli declarations. And then give two options to the poor people who will get to this horrible place: either to leave the Gaza Strip or to stay in the cage. There is no way they can come back to their homes and to their land. In other words, this is ethnic cleansing. If it is ethnic cleansing is the twin of genocide. The genocide serves the ethnic cleansing, and the mass killing that we saw systematically. Israel is destructing systematically, and is destroying this systematically, and Israel is killing systematically. This behaves like a genocide.
But would I be right, Mr. Levy, in saying that your view would be a minority opinion today in Israel, that a majority of Israelis believe this is a just war, that this is what has followed because Hamas carried out that terrible terror attack on October 7, 2023. So most Israelis will probably justify this, particularly as long as the hostages are still held by Hamas.
Definitely. And the best proof is the fact that most of the soldiers go recruit themselves and commit this war, commit this mass killing. There's very few Israelis who refuse to do so. There is a shift in recent weeks. I don't want to underestimate it. There is growing criticism and growing question marks about what Israel is doing there and what is the goal and what are the means. But still, the fact is that there is not a real opposition to the genocide. There is an opposition to the war. There is a great opposition to Netanyahu. There is a very strong movement for releasing the hostages. But I hear very little concern about the fate of the people of Gaza, which should be right now the first priority because they are facing the biggest catastrophe.
But is there an understanding among Israelis about what exactly is happening on the ground, the extent of destruction, the damage, the human suffering? Surely Israel cannot be immune to that, particularly the Israeli people, who in the last century themselves were victims of this kind of action by Hitler's army in the Second World War. Is there an understanding, or is there just so much of hatred now on both sides that there is no understanding or compassion left?
There's very little left, very, very little from the beginning, with the unbelievable, shameful collaboration of the Israeli media, which avoids describing what's going on in Gaza. And most of the Israelis are not exposed to the scene and to the images of Gaza. They know that something horrible is taking place there, but any Indian saw more than any average Israeli of what is happening 1 hour away from our homes in Gaza. Gaza is 1.5 hour drive from Tel Aviv. So the media doesn't report about it because they know that most of Israelis don't want to know what's going on there. And this vicious circle creates a situation in which most of the Israelis, not all of them, I emphasize, not all of them, but most of the Israelis care very little about Gaza because they feel that Gaza deserves this horrible punishment because of the 7th of October.
And from your vantage point, how do you see the world looking at it? There seems to be across the world also either powerlessness or turning a blind eye in a way to the suffering. The United Nations issues these statements from every now and then. Human rights group issue statements, but it doesn't seem to result in any collective action that will actually stop the war. It almost seems as if the world has given up, Mr. Levy.
The world didn't give up because the world didn't try. The world paid some lip services, namely condemnations, recognition of a Palestinian state, which is fairer than ever becoming a real state, and no measures or almost no measures. It is true that the atmosphere in Europe became very anti-Israeli, but the governments are very cautious in taking measures. The same governments which were very easy with taking measures against Russia after invading Crimea are very cautious in taking any measures against Israel. And for most of the Israelis, again, the world is only one country, namely the United States. The United States is still supporting Israel totally, blindly, and automatically, supports it internationally. The Trump administration hugs Israel, supplies it, and prevent any kind of measures from other countries against Israel. So the Israelis still feel, in a way, safe, but everyone understands that there is a very, very dark cloud about our heads, which is approaching Israel very quickly now.
But in the circumstances, then where does this latest ground offensive take this war? Because Israel is asking all Palestinian civilians to leave, 1 million of them to leave Gaza City, many of them children again. On the other hand, you've got a Donald Trump warning Hamas, do not use the hostages as human shield. I mean, are we going to see the catastrophe escalate even further because of the nature of these ground offensives and the comments that are now coming out?
Absolutely. And therefore, it is such an emergency time now. I don't see Donald Trump stopping Israel, and there is no one else to stop Israel. It all depends on Donald Trump, and he doesn't show any signs that he's going to stop Israel. And if he doesn't stop Israel, he could stop it, by the way, through one phone call. Within hours, he could stop the war. But he doesn't do it. And he knows why. I have no explanation for this because the United States is going to pay a price for it. But he continues to support Israel, encourage Israel even to go for this operation. and there is no one else to stop Israel. So as long as Donald Trump will not change his policy toward Israel, his attitude toward Israel, this will go on and become worse and worse and worse.
I want to, for just a moment, turn to where we started off, the allegations now of genocide, or the statement made by that UN commission saying that Israel is accusing Israel of genocide. Israel, in turn, says it's a fake report. They say we've given 1.6 million aid packages have been distributed, 106 million meals have reached civilians. They claim that they are making a distinction between Hamas and the civilians of the Palestinian areas. Does that hold any water anymore, according to you? Or are these distinctions simply non-existent anymore?
Non-existent anymore. And I guess that those propaganda persons who try to spread it don't believe in it by themselves. I mean, look at the effects on the ground, look at the starvation, look at the figures of people dying out of starvation, the famine on a daily basis. That's ridiculous. The fact that Israel sends some aid to Gaza is meaningless, because the fact is people are starving and people are hungry for 2 years now. So that's ridiculous. Israel is now committing a crime in Gaza, and I don't think that anyone serious in the world has any doubts about it.
What then, Mr. Levy, is the solution? From what I hear from you, there's only despair at the moment. Do you see any solution? If Hamas, for example, tomorrow were to release the hostages, would the war come to an end? Or will Netanyahu now continue to prosecute this war and eventually end up occupying Gaza and push every Palestinian out of the area? Is there a solution that you see? Any light at the end of this very dark tunnel?
There's only one way to stop it, as I said, and this way, the keys to this way are in the hands of one person, namely Donald Trump. As long as Donald Trump will do nothing, this will continue and nothing will stop Israel.
What would your message then, Mr. Levy, be for countries like India, which have built strong ties with Israel, but had a traditional relationship of support for the Palestinian state and the Palestinian cause? What would your message be to countries like India, which perhaps have, over the last 2 years, literally sat on the fence?
I think the world and India, including obviously India, maybe more than many other countries, knows very well and understands very well what is the role of the international community right now. The role is to save the remains of Gaza. And for saving this, any mean is legitimate, because we are speaking about real catastrophe. And therefore, it's not for me to tell India what to do. Remember what you have done toward the apartheid system in South Africa. This case right now is much worse and much more urgent, because in South Africa there was no genocide or mass killing in this scale like here, and mass destruction. Remember South Africa, remember your policy toward South Africa, and look at the facts on the ground. And everyone with his own conscience should ask himself, what is he ready to do in order to save 2.3 million helpless people who have no one to protect them, no one except of the international community.
But there are those who are listening to you today, Mr. Levy, in this country, who will say, what about Hamas? Should Hamas be seen as a terror group? And therefore, until Hamas gives up this path of violence, Israel will continue with its war. There are enough such voices in India as well who will echo what many Israelis, as you said, are also saying, that this is in a way a just war. What will you tell them?
Hamas should be fought, but this war is not against Hamas, it's against any human being in the Gaza Strip. Any human being in the Gaza Strip is now exposed to catastrophe. no matter if he is Hamas or is not. And most of the people of the Gaza Strip are not militant of Hamas. This is the minority, the small minority, and among them, most of them were already killed. It has nothing to do with Hamas. Right now, it has to do with the plan of ethnic cleansing in Gaza, and this must be stopped.
So can I, in conclusion, say that Gideon Levy is saying that what we have seen unfolding now in Gaza marks the complete death of morality and conscience in the manner in which this war is being conducted, that what we are seeing, in your view, and you've said this in Haaretz, I know in one of your columns, is little more than war crimes, that we are seeing war crimes taking place in front of us, and the world is silent or turning its face away, which marks the collapse of morality and a moral vacuum. Would I be right in saying that?
I don't know any other way to describe it except of what you just mentioned now. There is no other way to describe it. We can close our eyes, we can close our ears, we can close our conscience, but the facts on the ground are screaming, and they are screaming that something terrible happens in Gaza, and only the international community is there to protect Gaza. And until now, unfortunately, the international community is doing very little, much too little, without any kind of effect until now. Israel totally ignores all the signals of the world, all the resolutions, all the condemnations are totally ineffective. Israel continues, as you can see on the ground.
Gideon Levy, for joining me and speaking so eloquently. Thank you so much. I just want to say you recently wrote in Haaretz, Israel is covering its face out of shame, perhaps, or guilt, or fear, and presumably out of all three. The new trend is for officers to be interviewed on television to cover their faces with black hoods. The army of the people has become the army of the hoods. Those are very strong words, but I presume you stand by them at this crucial juncture. Am I correct?
Totally, and my face is not masked, so I stand here and say what I think. Nothing less and nothing more than this.
Okay. Gideon Levy, for joining us here on India Today, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.